in 3 delen worden verdeeld. The entire webinar will be in English. I'm switching to English. We have 3 speakers. I will do the first part about Cibutex, and then we have someone from Cirmar and from bAwear to give more detail about the research and the techniques we used. So without much ado, I will get started. Let's take a quick look at Cibutex for those of you who don't know our organization. The world of Cibutex is an organization that promotes and supports the recycling and reuse of business textiles in that sense. And we have members in the entire textile industry, as you can see in the overview here. These members have many outlets. We are a European organization cooperating from Sweden all the way down to Portugal and Spain. There's members on many locations. And what we do is we are not, Cibutex itself is not a production organization. We have no stakes in the industry. We only facilitate recycling and reusing, and we strongly promote the circularity of business textiles as a complement to the much larger fashion industry. Cibutex is divided in three brands. The main brand on top is Cibutex, the network. Then we have a digital platform where our members can submit loads of end-of-life textiles for recycling, and recyclers can pick it up from that platform. And we have a knowledge center for training and knowledge sharing, consultancy, and that's the Cibutex Center for Applied Circularity. And the fourth most important activity of Cibutex is our membership of the PRO, Collectief Circulair Textiel in Dutch. That's the Collective Circular Textile. And this organization helps us and our members to comply to the EPR legislation that is already in action in the Netherlands and will be effective in many European countries soon. So whether you like it or not, we will have to comply to that. The vision of Cibutex, so from what point of view do we operate? As said, we support the circular business textile industry, and we have actually 2 simple principles. Minimize the use of natural resources and prevent as much as you can useless waste of textile. Both of these are quite actual at the moment. We promote circular industry, and to understand circularity, we should look at a linear process. Most of the textiles that we know are produced, then used, reach the end of life stage, and are then incinerated or used as landfills. As you can see, it's a linear process with a beginning and an end. And this process actually takes a heavy toll on the planet. It uses a lot of resources, and it produces seemingly endless amounts of trash. And this is really becoming a problem in many countries. What we in Cibutex try to do is, instead of incineration and landfills, use the end-of-life textiles to smartly recycle them and reinsert them in the production process. As you can see here, we turn the linear into a circular process. That's our theory. We focus on textiles because the textile industry, not only to business, mainly of course B2C market, but textile in general, is a very polluting industry. The way it's done, the strain it puts on natural resources, the energy, water it uses, and the pollution and trash it produces is a real big problem. So that's why it's sensible to create some circularity in this industry. And yes, we are in business textiles. So why business textiles? Because they have a very specific number of advantages over fashion textiles. The business textiles are usually quite simple, consist of 1 or 2 components. They are in traceable, predictable volumes. We know where they are and how many there are. They're concentrated in a limited number of locations, so it's much easier to collect and sort them. And a lot of the business textiles are handled by textile service companies, and they can keep track of the end-of-life volumes much better. So these are advantages that business textiles have over regular fashion textiles. The question then is, how do we make it circular, the use of business textiles? To see that, we kind of go back to the previous process we showed. This is the resources we need. Then we take them into production, and our textile service companies, in the end, they lease them or rent them out to the market. There's a number of use cycles, washing, returning, until these textiles reach their end of life, as you can see here. This is the moment where we do not go to incineration, but we sort and collect these textiles, bring them in for recycling, create recycled materials that are very suitable to be reinserted in the production process. This is what we call closing the gap, eliminating useless waste and minimizing the use of virgin materials. Many people, when we show this diagram, say, well, that's a nice theory and a nice model, but can you make it work? That's, of course, crucial in this world. If we can make it work, we always say we are industry-based. We are founded by companies that for whom business textile is everyday business. Making it work is not just a side effect. It's essential to us. So yes, we can make it work. And we have an example for that, which we call our kitchen towel case. A very common product. Everybody knows it. It's in use in kitchens, restaurants, hotels, everywhere. And we took a number of our members from Cibutex, and we mapped the entire chain of production, collecting used materials, sorting them, spinning, weaving, producing, even reselling and taking it back to the market. The result was a kitchen towel that consists of 50% recycled content, which is quite a high number and not completely coincidental. The EPR I talked about, the law in the Netherlands, will force us to have a 50% recycled content by 2030. So this towel is already 2030 compliant, which is a nice detail. Yes, wow, that's what we said. Now we need to know how it compares. How does it really measure up? We may like it, but what do the facts say about this product? And to know more about this, we should look and visit the Cirmar organization. Jasper.
Yes, thanks. Thanks for having us. Let me dive a little deeper into where Eli left things. So first of all, thanks, Eli, for the extensive introduction and speaking about what is so important about basically the characteristics of B2B textiles and why it makes sense to sort of give it a shot to make circular progress there, and why it makes sense to do so in business-to-business textiles just as much as it would make sense in B2C textiles. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about digital product passports and how we have applied that to the kitchen towel case. And after I have talked about that, we will continue and give the word to Anton, who will dive a little deeper into the specific LCA that has been performed for this product. But let me start off by very quickly introducing who I am and who we are. So I'm Jasper and I work for Cirmar. That's short for Circular Markets. And essentially, we help companies make progress in the circular economy by transforming their products, their strategies, and the concepts they apply, but also by implementing digital product passports. And we do so in a standardized way. So our digital product passports are not a one-off. They are easily expanded to a large group of products. which means that you can do all sorts of stuff that is quite relevant nowadays. And it all starts with some of the challenges that that most companies face in this period of time in which everybody wants to become more sustainable, but where there are challenges to do so, to put that into practice. To realize the circular potential of products, we all want to know what the product-related impact is of products, because that's not surprisingly a very big contributor to our common footprint. So what does it mean to produce products, to put them into the market, to possibly incinerate them or recycle them end of use, and to use all of those materials again? Additionally, how do you make sure that that product as it is becomes more sustainable? How do you compare? How do you make fair comparisons between products and make informed decisions about where to go next? Those decisions have to be supported by better data. I explicitly say better data because one of the things that we come across is that everybody wants to have perfect data. But that simply doesn't exist. We have to basically move towards a situation where our data is better, is more precise, and can help us make better decisions and take small but relevant steps to get there. Additionally, and lastly, and we also explicitly put that last in this 4-dot sort of summary of what the challenges are, to comply with existing and with new or upcoming legislation. There's a lot of legislation under development and already implemented surrounding products, surrounding sustainability. And digital product passports are part of this landscape of legislative measures that are specifically, in our case, instigated by the European Union. And I'll dive a little deeper into how that reflects on textile products. But that's basically the landscape that we are faced with, and also the reason why it makes sense to work with digital product passports, and also why we teamed up with bAwear and Cibutex to basically prove this point. All right, let me continue. The European digital product passport. To start with, in our view, the least exciting stuff, but the necessary stuff, legislation. The mandatory European digital product passport will be introduced step by step. So essentially, as a continuation of legislation like the European Green Deal, from 2027 onwards, products that are placed on the B2C market in Europe in textiles will have to have a digital product passport to show for. That has to be connected to physical products. So as demonstrated on screen, okay. I see that the slide is still lagging behind. All right, we're right here. Is that correct? Yes, I think so. All right. So 2027 onwards, B2C textile products on the European market will have to be accompanied by a digital product passport. They'll have to be connected to physical products. So you'll find products in the store where you buy your products, and they'll be connected to a QR code or other identifier to be able to access this additional information about products. So where we come from a situation where you only know, for instance, basic washing instructions and possibly where a product has been produced, we will move to a situation where you can access more information digitally as a consumer. And all of these digital product passports connected to physical products have to be machine readable. So it's not enough to basically create a PDF or an image behind this QR code. It has to be a live document that is digitally accessible and machine readable. The EU has decided that this has to be organized decentrally, which means that the European Union hasn't created or will not create one digital product passport that everybody is going to use. companies themselves will be responsible for creating them, and they can use solution providers to help them do so. We are one of those solution providers, but there are and will be many more. And the only extra rule, basically, or basic rule, is that open standards will have to be used. And for many of the industries that will require digital product passport, like B2C textiles, one of those standards that we will be using is the GTIN, the code standard by GS1. But for many other aspects of this digital product passport, open standards will be the way to work with exchanging data, generating data. And that's basically the set of rules that the European Union has prescribed. Additionally, for every single product group that will require digital product passports, and textiles is one of the first, the European Union will define exactly what needs to be in there. So what has to be mandatory data for the DPP. They do so in delegated acts, and for textiles, we can expect the delegated act to be finalized somewhere in 2026. So the exact data points that are required are not completely clear yet, but the Joint Research Committee of the European Union has already laid out a pretty specified phasing of the introduction of the DPP. So yes, 2027 is a hard deadline to introduce the DPP, but in 2027, only a minimal and simplified DPP, as they call it, will be required. In 2030, we will move to a more advanced DPP, and in 2033, the full circular DPP will be required. So what does that mean? In 2027, you'll have to be able, if you put a textile product on the European market, you'll have to be able to communicate in your DPP what the composition of a product is, what its weight is, its recyclability, some traceability information, which basically means that you'll have to be able to communicate where a product comes from, how much recycled content is part of this product, and its environmental impact. Moving on to 2030, there will be some additional requirements like more supply chain information. It won't be enough to just say that your kitchen towel has been produced in Europe. You'll have to specify the stakeholders that are part of the supply chain and have to be able to communicate more clearly what kind of processes have taken part throughout basically the upstream part of this product. Additionally, you'll have to organize limited access to information for, and this is not the chief executive officer, no, this is the circular economy operator. And the circular economy operator is basically in the European dictionary, a recycler, a refurbisher, anyone who contributes basically to the circular potential of that product by performing either repair or by recycling parts of a product. That's the circular economy operator. And your DPP will have to be structured in such a way that if a recycler wants access to that DPP, it can only access the relevant information for that specific role. So a recycler will require different information than, for instance, an end consumer, and yet different information will be necessary to communicate with, for instance, the legislator. So any controlling bodies that will want access to your DPP will require different information. Additionally, we'll have to be able to track products after selling, and that's very specific to textiles. Not for every product group will this be required, but after selling a product, a lot will happen. A product might be refurbished, some repair might be done, and you'll have to be able to see what has happened. So that means quite specific item level tracking of products after sales. So that goes yet one step further in this process of creating digital product passports for all textile products. The full circular DPP in 2033 will require the secure access of limited information for all stakeholders. So that means that you'll have to have organized that not only those circular economy operators can have limited access to information, but that any stakeholder will have the specific access that it needs, and that will be organized in one of a couple of ways. That might go through verified credentials, which is essentially a way to identify yourself as a player or a stakeholder in that system, and to then disclose certain information within that DPP. But there's a couple other ways in which that might be organized as well. That goes a little bit deep into the technical aspects of the DPP for now. But just know that that is on the horizon, but still a few years away. Additionally, you'll have to be able to communicate full upstream supply chain insights, including impact calculations. And specifically for textiles, that is one of the things that Anton will speak about a little bit later, how that works. Because that means that you don't only have to be able to communicate about the impact of an end product, but also more specifically on the impacts of specific stages in the process of creating, for instance, this kitchen towel. All right. Why is it relevant for us to work with an initiative like Cibutex? Basically, in line with what we believe in at Cirmar, that the transition to a circular economy is our only option for the environment, to secure our resources, but also to find sustainable business models. The clearest example of scarcity of materials and how that affects European industry is basically what happened to the evergreen a couple of years ago. Securing resources, recovering materials is not only essential to environmental goals that we all have, but also to be able to produce the stuff that we actually need. And for that reason, it makes sense to take steps towards more circular products. And B2B is a very logical place to start. Regardless of legislative requirements, we know where products are, we know when they might come back. So let's make sure we make the most of these materials. And in the combination with Cibutex, we basically give input in terms of recording and following up on the circularity of products. To calculate the impact of products, we do something in that aspect as well, which I'll touch upon shortly. And basically using tech tools for circular business, and that goes beyond just adding a digital product passport to a product, but basically building circular concepts and circular strategies around tech tools. Because in the end, they're only a tool. They're only a way to make something else happen. And in our view, that should always be working towards more circular business models. On the other hand, for us, it's very interesting to connect with Cibutex because we want to showcase and we want to illustrate why it makes sense to do this for textiles. And what has been achieved with the kitchen towel is a great pilot example of that. But we want to urge anyone active in textiles and specifically B2B textiles to start use cases as well, to start illustrating what it means to make these steps. We want to connect with more relevant stakeholders, as we have done with, for instance, bAwear, to make sure that we can not only connect these digital tools to physical products, but that we can also dive very deep into the environmental impacts and make real progress. And lastly, as Eli already touched upon, we want to close loops because that's what circular progress means. All right, C-Passport, which is our digital product passport, and then specifically the kitchen towel example. We've created several product passports for this pilot, where we basically created passports for the various compositions of kitchen towel that were possible. Because the recyclability of a product also heavily depends on the way it's designed, the way it's composed. So in this example, you can see that it consists of a blend of cotton yarn and polyester, but the percentages can vary, and we can play with the composition and relate that to its recyclability. We compared basically what it means to create a product that is fully incinerated end of use, and a product that has a better end of use because of the way it's designed and because of the way we have placed it in a circular system. What our application does, our system does, is basically connect the materials to impacts besides visualizing all of this information. It directly automatically calculates the footprint of products, which I will dive a little deeper into shortly. But essentially, it means that you share more complete information digitally. This goes way beyond what we are used to in the labels of our products, but there simply isn't enough space as well to leave all of this information. Besides the material composition, you'll find specific codes, impact figures, but also extra information to realize that circular potential. If we have found a recycling solution for this specific product, we also need the information to make that happen. That is why you can add information about, for instance, recycling partners, possibly drop-off points, collection points for textiles, to make sure that you can actually recover the materials. And as I said, it's not the most important driver, but still relevant. From 2027 onwards, this DPP is simply part of EU legislation. So if you want to act in line with the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products regulation, specifically for B2C products, you'll have to have digital product passports. But as many of you probably know, it's not as simple as that there's only B2B and only B2C. These markets intertwine, and you'll deal with a lot of stakeholders that might also require digital product passports themselves. So even if you're not responsible to create digital product passports yourself, stakeholders or supply chain partners will request data to be able to create these digital product passports. Creating DPPs and calculating impact in one system. Within our system, the basic elements that you need is the weight, material composition, and end of use. So what we've done, and the material composition that we've visualized here is a bit more complex than that of the kitchen towel, is what it's made of, how you have constructed the product. So is it comprised of several components, or is it just one end product? Its weight, and whether it's incinerated, recycled, refurbished, or a combination of those. And cPassport then generates a digital product passport, both an internal version and an external version, one that you can basically use to share specific information with stakeholders, and you can hide or visualize certain information. Impact data, we focus on the material impact. So washing and other processes are not part of that calculation, but basically producing, sourcing materials, realizing a product, and then discarding or recycling, refurbishing a product, and using those materials again can be calculated in our system. And that data can also be used as input data for other sources. So we've added the possibility to create data exports for reporting like CSRD, which obviously has many requirements that are in line with the data that you already gather for your digital product passports. So that's very relevant as well. What this doesn't do, like I said, is calculate the specific impact of, for instance, washing processes. And for B2B textiles, that's clearly very relevant. If you place a kitchen towel on the B2C market, it's basically out of scope what happens after selling with that product, because you can't easily calculate how many times a kitchen towel has been washed by a consumer. But for B2B relations, that is much more clear. We can quite clearly get feedback from supply chain partners how often a kitchen towel is washed, how often it should be washed before it has reached its end of life. So to add all of that information and dive even deeper into the impact of textiles, I'd like to give the word to Anton from bAwear, and he'll explain all.
Jasper, thank you for the kind introduction and your story about your product passport. As you clearly indicated, it is essential to have right data when you want to, well, have to comply with European legislation the digital product passport, but also you need more information if you want to develop and design new products. And the eco-design directive is part of this digital product passport, or the other way around, and the eco-design regulation and puts forward the digital product passport. A calculation of environmental impact is a lot of work normally, and it still is. And when you want to do a thorough LCA, a life cycle analysis from cradle to grave, then you will need at least deep pockets, because it will cost you quite a lot of money, but also lots of time, due to the fact that you will need to have every specific part of your supply chain and every entry that's coming in, you need to calculate. In textiles, that's nearly impossible, and due to the fact that we have so many styles, so many products around, so many different fibers, so many different processes, that when you want to do a real LCA, it will take you tens of thousands of euros, weeks of time, and with 100,000 styles on a Dutch market, it's impossible to do so. So bAwear thought we have to find a way in which we can simulate, I would say, a real LCA, but in a much simpler way and much more scalable. And that's why we came up with bAwear Score, a system in which we make textile or impact calculation, footprint calculations much more easily, based on a textile model, a very general textile model, which we can walk through in a very specific way, which was built together with Cirmar, one of the major suppliers of LCA software in the world, based in Amersfoort. The expertise we have on board, and that's where we came up with bAwear Score. As you already said, we will need, and everyone in the textile supply chain will need, a lot of data, and needs to generate a lot of data in the next years in order to fulfill all those requirements. And Eurotex is talking about 16 new European regulations coming up to the textile industry. ESPR is one of them. The CSRD reporting is another one of them. And there are many of them, and part of it is calculation. Part of it has to be done according to the FCR regulations, which are now finalized at this moment. At this moment, bAwear Score is not completely in line with the FCR, but we will be by the end of the year. And due to the fact that we have made it much more simple, and the FCR is asking for 16 or 17 impact categories, we are calculating them all, but we are only reporting 4 of them at the moment, and that's complex enough, I think, for the time being. If and data are often lacking and not about the whole supply chain, you will have all the information. The transparency, the traceability in the textile supply chain is often quite poor. So you do not know where your cotton is coming from or where your polyester was produced, and then you need to rely on secondary data. We have quite a large library of secondary data based on textile materials, on textile processes, on every part of it. So if you do not have primary data from your supply chain, we can fill in and we can use secondary data. But be aware, our secondary data are worst case scenarios. So worst case data, we are not helping companies to greenwash them. We are only to help them then to calculate, well, this will be the upper limit of your impact of your product. That's better than using industrial averages, because then you will greenwash quite a lot of products, and we are not there to greenwash products. We are there to give real data. What is needed then is that you have digital tools to do this, and bAwear tool is one of those digital tools in which we are able to do a calculation on the environmental impact, a little bit depending on the amount of data you have, but I think in most cases we can do a calculation within half an hour based on the data that are available and come up with a relevant, reliable impact solution or results. So what we do is we made a textile streamlined. Now we are doing streamlined textile LCAs, and we make this tool. We produce this tool, and tool is enlarged, and because textiles is so complex that you always can add new processes, can add new machinery, new equipment, new technologies, new combination of processes, and they are used all in the textile industry. We are using, so as I said, simplified, streamlined LCAs for scalability. So we can do an LCA in 30 minutes, but if we are using our bAwear advanced solution, we can do it in less than 10 minutes. We can upload in an Excel upload system. We can upload hundreds of products at one time. So we can do it quite fast and quite precise, I would say. And when you have calculated your data, then of course you have data, but then the question is, and how do you transfer those data into actionable insights? Where do you have to start when you want to reduce the environmental footprint of your textile product? And such calculations give you a first place where hotspots and where you should attack your supply chain. What's in it? As Jasper already said, and they are using only looking at the materials and the end of life. Well, there's much more in textiles. There's much more between the start and the finish. We have quite a large library on fibers, natural and synthetic fibers, recycled fibers we can use, as well as granulates. And when you want to produce non-wovens and melt them and that kind of things, they are there. After the next step normally is making yarns out of it. So spinning technologies, I think we have more than 15 spinning technologies in our system, calculating the impact and the energy use of the spinning, and then the outcome, and again, is different from each technology, but also each country where you do, because the energy mixes in the country are not the same. And in India, they have a very high carbon footprint for 1 kilowatt hour. In France, they have quite a low due to the fact that they are using quite some nuclear energy over there. Then you are going to weaving and knitting and making fabrics. And the fabrics are finished, dyed, printed, bleached, and in order to get, and at the end, you make a product out of it. Product goes to the user through retail, and then the washing, the drying, ironing, whatever in the maintenance, and as Jasper showed, that's in a loop, and that's done for many times. And afterward, you can go for, and when the product is gone, you can go for or recycling, or incineration, or landfill, or in some cases also reuse. For every part, for everything you see here in this scheme, we have solution, we have secondary data. So if you are lacking primary data, we fill in our secondary data in order to help you to assist and to make a reliable calculation, but always on the higher side, as I said. To dive a little bit deeper into the use and care, because we have many people around which are in the care industry. But what we have in our system is that we can choose our type of laundry. Do we have home laundry? Do we have industrial laundry? If you have chosen your laundry type, you can choose your washing machine and what kind of washing equipment do you use. And in home laundry, do you use a front loader or a top loader? In industrial laundry, also a number of washing machines there. Then you can choose your washing temperature, and there's lots of talks about washing at 20 degrees or washing at boil. And we can do it all, and in the background of the program, and the right amount of energy is calculated, which is used in order to wash up the water and so on. Then one of the items, one of the processes that takes quite a lot of energy is drying. How do you dry? how much moisture is there in this, and before, after pressing or after centrifuging, how much moisture is there. Normally it depends on the structure of the material, but also on the chemical composition of the material. Cotton takes more water than polyester, and so you can fill it in. And after drying, you can also fill in your the amount of moisture you have removed and the moisture that is left in the product. Normally it will be close to zero, but if you are very careful, then you can say, well, 5% moisture after drying is okay, and I can do it. Then what kind of drying method do you use? And again, for home laundry, of course, we have completely different drying methods there available. So if you do not know, well, more or less you can know this one. If you know more exactly and on primary data, and then you know exactly, and then you can say, well, how much energy did I use per washing cycle? And when I wash 1 kilogram of material, did I use solar energy or renewable energy sources? The amount, and if you do not know exactly the amount, you can fill in the percentages and say, well, 60% of my energy was renewable energy, 40% was from the grid. If you know the amount of heat you're using for your drying processes or the steam you need to heat up the water, you can use it in, and the amount of water you used in your washing process. Everything in yellow here can be adapted to your own needs. If not, we use our standard data here, which are a little bit less favorable than what is stated here. And at the end, we can also calculate the total amount of wash cycles over the whole lifetime in order. And that, again, that's an important parameter, because when you do have a better product which lasts longer, then 65 will become 80. Or if you have a product which is a little bit less strong, or it's discarded for one or another reason, and another time, and 40 washes, you will exactly see what is the impact of your of that behavior, of that product quality on the total impact of the product. When we have calculated everything, we report it in a standard report. In a standard report, you will see part of the what we did, and who was ours, and who ordered the calculation, what was calculated. We gave it away in a numerical value, and we also put it down into a graphical value where you can see where the hotspots are. Of course, in laundry, when you wash a lot, and the laundry itself is quite is a hotspot in itself, but also you can see about the materials or the spinning and the yarn production or the fabric production or the finishing, is everything there. And for the carbon footprint, for the fossil energy use, the energy, but you see the land use is depending much on the fibers itself, and also the water consumption is often well, the fibers itself take quite a lot of water compared also even to the use phase. And in this way, we can calculate it. Well, this can be done in half an hour, I would say. You get rather detailed information on your product, and then you can, of course, repeat this again and again. I can imagine that this was a little bit quick for you. What we can offer, Cirmar and bAwear together, is to make for you a free calculation, a free product passport, in order that you can experience yourself and how does it work, what kind of information do you need to deliver to us, and what do you get into return. Please contact Jasper or myself, and then we will take care that you can get this kind of calculation, and as an example for once time. And by this, I want to pass the word to Eli and to round up the seminar.
Thank you, Anton. Thank you, Jasper. I think we have a lot of information for everybody. The whole presentation of today is recorded and will be made available. Details will follow on LinkedIn. For now, I'd like to say that the role of Cibutex is maybe has been highlighted here, we really encourage people to join Cibutex and to create more pilot projects like the kitchen towel we just saw. We don't just do pilot projects, we bring them to the market, make them into commercial size as well. And we really could need people and companies that have fresh and new initiatives to make this happen. So once again, come and join us, and we can make the textile industry circular a lot faster than everybody is thinking. Thanks for your attention, and hopefully see you again next time.